Back from the dead.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're all invited to go fucking mental on this motherfucking drop. The countdown has just begun. Are you ready? Let's go.
Now we're back from the dead.
Vergil was born to the Dark Knight Sparta and the human Eyra, where he and his younger brother Dante would live a normal life. Before their 8th birthday, Eyra would give each of them half the perfect amulet, while Sparta would give them a weapon, the rebellion for Dante, and the Yamato for Vergil. One day, their home would be attacked where he would be ambushed by demons and would be forced to awaken his demonic powers. Years later, Vergil would meet a man named Arkham, where the two would work together to raise Temmie. After breaking the seals and raising the tower, Vergil would be confronted by an 18-year-old Dante, but Vergil would be the one to take his half of the perfect amulet, but unintentionally awaken his demonic powers. Later, Vergil would figure out Arkham's betrayal, in turn will attempt to kill him, seeing no further use for the man. But it wouldn't be long for Dante to find Vergil. After a brief fight, their fight would be interrupted by Lady, where the three would be defeated by Arkham, who had survived. The two later meet in the Netherworld, where the Sons of Sparta would finally put an end to Arkham, where they would fight one last time in the Demon World, but this time Dante would win, who would return to the human world, while Vergil would face off against the Demon King Mundus, but would be defeated and turned to his servant Nel Angelo. Several years later, Vergil had escaped the demon world, where he would be severely weakened. Eventually he would find Nero and would tear off his Devilbringer arm to retrieve the Yamato, where he would head back to his family's home to split himself apart, creating his human half V and Urizen. After Dante would defeat Urizen, V would merge himself back with Urizen to reunite the two back to Vergil. Vergil wouldn't have to wait long for Dante to dispatch V's familiars before facing Vergil, but the two would match each other. After their fight, the two would be confronted by Nero, who now awakened his Devil Trigger, and after a prolonged fight, Nero would best Vergil. After the Sons of Sparta would destroy the Qliphoth tree from the Demon World, where the two would seem to put their grudges aside for each other for good. Cinder Fall lived in an orphanage where she was constantly bullied by the other children and mistreated by the caretakers. However, one day she would be adopted by a madam, but her torment will only continue, where she would be psychologically abused by her stepmother and constantly bullied by her stepsisters. However, when not being tormented, she would be secretly trained by a man named Rose, eventually gifting her one of his swords. But late one night, one of her stepsisters would discover this, but Cinder would kill her stepsisters and her stepmother. Later, she would be confronted by Rose, who would fight her, but will ultimately be defeated. At some point, Cinder will encounter Salem and will work for her by completing her goals in exchange for power. Cinder will go on to recruit Emerald Sustrai, Mercury Black, where he would suggest on Roman Torchwick, and the White Fang leader, Adam Taurus. However, her first attempt would fail, but after taking a portion of the Fall Maiden's powers, she will return to force him into working with her. Cinder would later take her team to pose as students for an upcoming Vital tournament, where she would hack into the system during the tournament. She would rig a match with the help of Emerald's illusions to have Pure accidentally tear opponent Penny apart. As the city of Vale would be overrun by grim and now hostile Elysian Knights along with the White Fang, she would track down Ozpin in the vault, and after finishing what she started with the Fall Maiden, she would now possess the full power of the Maiden, where she would defeat Ozpin. Later, she would be confronted by Pyra, but despite her efforts, she would be overpowered and defeated by Cinder, but who would unfortunately be severely wounded by Ruby's Silver Eye's power, losing her left arm and eye. After doing some training and getting used to her powers, Cinder would seal a deal with the bandit leader Raven Branwyn, who would lead the attack on Haven. Cinder would head to the vault with Raven and Vernal, but would freeze Raven and kill Vernal in an attempt to take the Spring Maiden's powers. However, Raven would break free and engage with Cinder, and after a prolonged fight, Cinder would be bested by Raven. Afterwards, Cinder would find a woman named Little Miss Malott, who would tell her that Team Ruby and Juniper were heading to Atlas. But during this, she would be attacked by Neapolitan. After a brief scuffle, Cinder would propose that they should work together to take out RWBY. Neo would oblige and would obtain an airship where the two would head into Atlas. After reaching Atlas, Cinder will have Neo infiltrate the Schnee Manor, where Cinder would tail Winter, Schnee, and Penny, where they would head to the Winter Maiden's quarters, where she would attack and would ultimately outduel the two. However, Winter would retaliate to stop Cinder from taking the Winter Maiden's powers, but would be injured, but thanks to RWBY and Weiss arriving, she would be forced to retreat. Soon after a fight, Cinder and Neo would acquire an airship to retreat to Grimwhale to hand the Relic of Knowledge to Salem, who would request to hunt down the Winter Maiden, but her quest would be denied. Out of frustration, she would break into a midi, where she would attack Penny. Despite holding on pretty well, she would eventually be overpowered and defeated. As Team RWBY planned to use the Relic of Creation to transport the citizens of Mantle and Atlas to Vacuo, Cinder would follow them, where she would fight the two teams. Neo would be successful in knocking Yang off the ledge, where she would face off against both RWBY and Blake, while Cinder would fight Penny again. As the fight would drag out, Cinder would take the Relic of Knowledge before knocking Neo and RWBY into the abyss. After this, Cinder would return to Salem, to the vault, where her journey would continue. Sephiroth's birth was a result of the Genova project led by Dr. Hojo, who studied the remains of an extraterrestrial entity mistaken for the race of Cetra, an ancient people who could speak to the planet. After his birth, Sephiroth would not gain this ability, but would be respected as a hero after rising through the ranks of soldier, eventually gaining first class. Near the end of the Wutai War, Sephiroth would befriend Angel and Genesis. Eventually, Angel and Genesis would go rogue. During the mission of Nibelheim, Genesis would reveal Sephiroth's origins to the man, and on October 1st, Sephiroth would slaughter almost everyone in the town, but would be confronted by Zack. After a brief fight, he would eventually overpower Zack and knock him out the reactor, but Zack's best friend Cloud Strife would impale Sephiroth through the back. However, this would only stun him and would retaliate by impaling the younger man, but who would use what strength he had left. Cloud would toss Sephiroth into the reactor, seemingly putting an end to him. 5 years later, Sephiroth would manipulate Cloud's team to hand him the Black Materia, where he would travel into the depths of the planet, where he would transform into a safer form. After facing off against Avalanche, he would be forced back into his base form, where he and Cloud would face off one last time, but ultimately be defeated. As a result, Cloud would send Sephiroth's spirit into a live stream where he could do no more harm. Well, what's up, Winter here with my season finale match, where I'll be taking 3 antagonists from different franchises who will do whatever it takes to obtain new power. Now, as for my resources for these 3, I'll only be taking Vergil's appearance from DMC 5, as well as his DLC appearance. For Cinder, I'll only be sticking to the anime, and last but not least, for Sephiroth, I'll only be taking his appearance from Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. Now with that aside, let's start by breaking these three down physically. By the time of his final battle with Nero, Vergil would be in his mid-early 30s, standing around 6'4". Due to being a demon hybrid, Vergil was given enhanced strength, speed, durability, and stamina. Despite his very few showings, Vergil scales to Dante, who at this time matched Vergil after receiving his Devil Trigger Saiyan transformation. Strength-wise, Vergil was able to tear off Nero's Devil Bringer arm, and even attempted flying with ease despite being severely weakened. And even sent Dante flying back with a simple jab with his sheath, as well as create shockwaves when he and Dante clashed. Speed-wise, Vergil's best showing is cutting through demons before they could reach him, as well as clear distance between him and Dante in seconds. As for durability, Vergil has gotten right back up after stalemating with Dante and seemed unfazed after being defeated by Nero. Stamina is unknown, but just like with Nero and Dante, it's my belief that Vergil is capable of fighting for prolonged periods of time with very short breaks needed. As in Volume 8, Cinder will be in her early or mid-20s, staying around 5'11". In terms of strength, Cinder is capable of easily overpowering Winter, who is not only a seasoned huntress, but slammed Crow into the ground that formed the crater. Speed-wise, Cinder scales to Ozpin and Raven. When in her fight with Ozpin, she still managed to keep pace with him despite being able to move fast enough to create after images of himself. As shown in her fight with Raven, the two managed to fight on falling debris that took place in only seconds. Durability-wise, Cinder has survived having debris collapse on her, as well as survived being encased in ice, and even took some elemental attacks from penning. Stamina-wise, much like all huntresses, Cinder is capable of fighting for prolonged periods of time with short breaks needed. By the time of his death, Sephiroth would be a 27-year-old man staying around 6'1". Due to being enhanced with Genova cells, Sephiroth would be given enhanced strength, speed, durability, and stamina. Strength-wise, Sephiroth is capable of creating shockwaves when clashing with Cloud Strife. For speed, Sephiroth is capable of maneuvering around Tifa's attacks. Durability-wise, Sephiroth is pretty tough. His best showing is after literally being slapped around by Sora, showed little to no reaction, and simply brushed off as if nothing even happened. Stamina-wise, due to its enhancements and being a much more stable specimen, as mentioned by Dr. Hojo, Sephiroth is capable of fighting for days to possibly even weeks with little to no rest needed. Now, unlike my other matches, instead of saying who's overall superior, I'll be ranking each character from best to worst. When it comes to their physical performance, and their base forms at least, they pretty much almost even each other out. They're equally young, with Vergil being likely 10 years older than Cinder and Sephiroth. They're equally strong, equally durable, and somewhat equally fast. However, even with Vergil holding a slight speed advantage, they will still be on par with each other, so I give no edge in physical capabilities. Vergil carries up to 3 weapons. His first is his father's sword, the Yamato. The Yamato is a katana that's infused with demonic magic that's able to cut through souls and even dimensions. His Beowulf flash gauntlets and greaves that he obtained while at taming the Gru after defeating Beowulf the Light Beast. The Beowulf can deliver powerful punches and kicks in what seems to be a form of kickboxing. The Beowulf gauntlets and greaves can be charged up to deliver even more devastating blows. Lastly, Vergil carries the Mirage Edge, that's the spectral version of the Force Edge that he previously owned. The Mirage Edge seems to be more suited for speed, precision, and power blows, much like Dante's Rebellion. The Mirage Edge is capable of delivering projectile slashes as well as being flung like a boomerang that will return on command. With the Mirage Edge, he can also dual-wield his Yamato in a Jarkai style. Cinder carries a total of 6 weapons that can be materialized at will. Her swords consist of 2 short swords, a spear, a knife, lastly a bow and arrow. Cinder can create multiple knives at once to fire an opponent. As for a bow and arrow, she can fire off a total of 3 arrows at once. Her weapons seem to have a fire element, but this seems to be assisted by her semblance. Sephiroth only carrying 1 weapon. His main weapon is dubbed the Masamune. The Masamune is an Odachi style blade measuring about 8 feet long. Due to its design, the sword is better used as a fencing weapon rather than slashing. The unique ability that the blade has is the ability to send out projectile slashes, however they can be countered by well-timed deflection. There's really no competition here. Starting off with Vergil, his weapons give him the overall best quantity and quality over Cinder and Sephiroth. The Yamato itself gives him overall better reach, and its demonic origins makes it a nightmare for the two. The Beowulf grants him better close quarter combat, and his Mirage Edge can be used alongside his Yamato in a Jarkai style. In second place, I'll have to give it to Cinder by default, since her knives and arrows give her a better range than Sephiroth. But some will say that Sephiroth's Masamune could be used to keep his opponents at bay. However, all this does is give his opponent more room to retaliate. So it'll go Vergil in first place, Cinder in second, and Sephiroth dead last in third. After awakening his demonic powers at a young age, Vergil's demonic powers consist of him being able to fire off energy swords rapidly. Offensively, he can fire off a barrage or has him surround opponents that will fire off on his command. Defensively, he can have them surround him to deal out damage to any opponents who get near him, or rain down on a group of opponents to pin them down. After being merged back together with V, Vergil awoken 2 new abilities. His first is to create a doppelganger of his Devil Trigger Sin transformation that can fight alongside him or for him. Speaking of which, his most dangerous ability is his Devil Trigger Sin transformation that multiplies his combative performance to make him an even more deadly opponent. When in this form, Vergil can also fly, but this is only shown once when entering the demon world. And just for the sake of fairness, no, I won't be acknowledging his World of V ability. Lastly, Vergil can teleport rapidly to either close distance between his opponents or dodge attacks. Just like all Huntresses, Cinder has access to her aura and semblance. Aura is a manifestation of one's soul that can heal a user, buff their strength, or dampen damage. After gaining the power of the Fall Maiden, Cinder gained a plethora of abilities. Her first ability is to use magic, but Cinder has mainly been seen using fire magic, and once wind magic. Just like the other maidens, she also gained the ability of flight for better mobility, as well as the ability to amp her physical performance with her elemental magic. But she's only been seen using this with her fight with Raven, and has also shown to create a blade out of molten rock. Her semblance allows her to heat up her weapons and makes them explode upon contact to her opponent. Another unique ability she gained is the ability to disintegrate her opponent, but this ability only seems to work if her opponent is weakened down enough. After losing her arm during her fight with RWBY due to her silver eyes, she gained the Grim Arm, likely from Salem. The arm only showing so far as to stretch out to grab onto opponents from distance, but this will inflict fatal damage to her if the arm is severed. Unlike his canon counterpart, Sephiroth prefers to use his magic a lot. Due to his nature to dark magic, Sephiroth can teleport rapidly around the battlefield. His spells arrange from a shadow flare that creates dark energy orbs to lock onto a target's location that will fire off on his command. Fire Go Wall creates gigantic pillars of flames. His meteors can either be fired on to opponent or surround him defensively. His more dangerous abilities are his Heartless Angel spell that will nearly drain all magic from an opponent, and Flash allows him to enter a Berserker Rage to slash wildly around the battlefield that will take out a target if timed properly. Lastly, he can fly and levitate with the use of his Black Angel Wing. When it comes to her overall magic, it's a bit of a toss-up. Vergil has better flexibility while Sephiroth has better firepower. Cinder, on the other hand, is basically fucked since she's using basic magic that a canon Sephiroth will find laughable. Vergil's energy swords are something that this powered up Sephiroth will find annoying, since he hasn't faced an opponent who can fire them endlessly. Vergil would be able to dodge Shadow Flare and his mirrors along with Flash by simply teleporting. Sephiroth will have to watch out for Vergil's Devil Trigger transformation, since he wouldn't have the speed necessary to keep up with him by then. And Vergil can use this ability alongside his doppelganger. As for Cinder, she doesn't have a direct counter to dodge Vergil's energy swords, even if she enters physical performance. Her flight is going to help her much since both Vergil and Sephiroth can teleport. Overall, both Vergil and Sephiroth outclass Cinder both in quantity and quality. So the placements will go Vergil in first place, Sephiroth in second, and Cinder in last place. Just like all my past matches this season involving sword wielders, I'll be using Star Wars lightsaber fighting forms to better describe and illustrate a combatant's approach to combat. Vergil was trained by Sparta. From his training, Vergil will use Form 2 Makashi, Form 5 Shin/Genso, and Form 6 Neimon. Makashi teaches a user to use quick precision strikes that's built for blade combat, but the form does lack power behind strikes, while Shin/Genso teaches a user to either block or deflect attacks before immediately counterattacking with a devastating assault, while Neimon teaches the user to hone to use both blade and force abilities, or in this case, Vergil's blade and demonic powers. As tactician, Vergil takes the patience necessary, allowing his opponents to act before countering, and when the time is right, combine his demonic abilities with his blade skills. Cinder was trained by Rose at a young age, and from his training, she'd be proficient in Form 4 Taru, Form 5 Genso, and Form 6 Neomon. Ataru, also known as the aggression form, trains the user to use acrobatics and aggression, while the Genso variation teaches the user to dodge or block before immediately counterattacking with a devastating assault. Form 6 trains the user to be a jack of all trades but a master of none, that can only be taught after mastering the previous 5 forms, to train a user to use blade and force abilities, or in this case, Cinder's blade magic. As a tactician, Cinder is a bit all over the place. On one hand, she's a kind tactician, being able to outduel both Winter and Penny even after Winter gained the power of the Winter Maiden, and is even capable of dueling 2 swords in the Dark Knight style. However, she seems to let her anger get the best of her, and once this happens, she just goes all out on a ferocious assault until her opponent is taken out. Due to being a train member soldier, Sephiroth will utilize in Form 1 Shisho, Form 2 Makashi, Form 4 Taru, and Form 6 Neomon. Ataru, also known as the aggression form, utilizes in acrobatics and aggression, however is not well built to engage in close quarters combat. Makashi consists of blade on blade combat to slip through the opponent's guard, but it does like firepower behind its strikes. Shisho is the most basic form, utilizing in wide sweeping strikes to deal with groups of opponents, however the form can be countered by a well-trained opponent. While Neomon trains the user to combine their blade and force abilities, or in this case, Sephiroth's blade and magic. As tactician, unlike his canon counterpart, who is arrogant, overconfident, therefore easily being able to be taken off guard, this powered up version of Sephiroth is a cold, cunning tactician who is more than willing to cycle through his magic and swordsmanship to easily overwhelm opponent until they're taken out. Much more easier than the last category, Vergil is noticeably the more tactical of the two. While some may argue that Vergil's fighting style is something that Dante even Nero were able to find a way around, one must remember, A. Dante and Vergil have spent years fighting each other, and B. Dante and Vergil were noticeably worn down after their fight, which gave Nero a handicap to his win. And Cinder is way too high-headed to even challenge a calm, calculating strategist like Vergil, or a cunning tactician like Sephiroth. And just like with his swordsmanship, Sephiroth is just dangerous with magic and is willing to use his blade and magic skills a lot. And this is a strategy that not only is Cinder not flexible in, but uses a basic version of it. So at the end of the day, the positions will go Vergil in first place, Sephiroth in second, and Cinder dead last in third place. Let's just say in this scenario that the Clyfall tree has been raised in Mantle, where Vergil waits atop of the tree for Dante, and Cinder is tasked by Salem to obtain a Yamato from Vergil by any means necessary, while Sephiroth is revived by Mundus from the livestream after making a deal with him if he's able to defeat Vergil, that he'll be granted a sample of the fruit from the Clyfall tree. Cinder makes her way up the tree after disposing some strange creatures that she's not familiar with. However, she had a job to do, and she really didn't want to disappoint Salem. Cinder sees Vergil overlooking the chaos breaking out on the streets of Mantle, a mix of Grimm and demons and huntsmen, tearing each other apart. Vergil senses Cinder's presence and turns around and is a bit annoyed when not seeing Dante. I don't know who you are, but you need to leave. Sorry, but you have something that I want. You either give it to me, and we can each go our separate ways, or I can take it from you. Your choice. Vergil is a bit amused by the woman's demand and simply turns around to face the woman about 10 years younger than him. But before they could rush each other, a black feathery flash combusts in front of them to reveal their third opponent, Sephiroth, who eyes Vergil. That's an interesting sword you're carrying. I hope it doesn't change its mind once I defeat you. Not knowing which opponent to go with, Vergil pops him out a few inches out of its sheath, while Cinder manifests a short sword. As they close the distance, Sephiroth easily fends off both Cinder and Vergil. And while Vergil and Sephiroth are busy, Cinder tosses a knife between them that erupts in an explosion. Now gaining their attention, Cinder takes flight as she switches to her bow and rains down explosive arrows at Vergil, who responds by teleporting past them, but the main is caught off guard when she feels another presence behind her. Sephiroth summons a circle of black orbs around her, who tries to get away but is proven futile as she's bombarded by a barrage of sword strikes and energy orbs that sends her crashing to the ground. Vergil and Sephiroth trade blows despite the angel trying to catch him off guard with his teleportation, but the Alpha and Omega is keeping his distance, deciding to run Sephiroth through a test. Vergil fires off energy swords, causing Sephiroth to constantly teleport. The angel decides to return the favor by using his Shadow Flare, but Vergil does the same in response by teleporting rapidly. Sephiroth sends off the orbs but misses, which results in him getting hit by a judgment cut. Cinder, despite taking a bad hit, responds by firing 3 explosive arrows at the angel. She doesn't relent and fires off a few fireballs at the staggered angel. Sephiroth returns the assault by firing off his meteors, but both Cinder and Vergil manage to dodge them, but with Vergil phasing through them and Cinder flying out of the way just in time. The Dark Knight creates a clone who sends it to fight Sephiroth, while Vergil engages with Cinder, who surrounds her with a circle of energy swords. Thinking fast, she channels some energy and shatters the swords before they could stab her. Shocked at this, Vergil activates his judgment cut that staggers her, causing the man to create a sword out of molten rock. As the two close the distance, the impact results in an explosion. Despite being a bit burnt, Vergil pushes himself up. By now, Vergil's clone has dispersed, and despite taking some damage, Sephiroth is done playing around. This is only for fun, but now it's time to put you two to rest. You got that right. Cinder sees the scattered granite and channels her magic to create pillars of flames that burn Vergil. The Dark Knight calls down a hail of energy swords, while Vergil switches to his Beowulf and teleports up to Sephiroth to dish out acrobatics, punches, and kicks. However, Cinder stretches out her grim arm and stabs Vergil in the back. Cinder follows up and tosses Vergil into a wall, who switches back to Yamato. As Cinder goes for another grab, Vergil teleports to the silent time and takes off her arm with a well-placed precision slash. Cinder recoils back in agony while Vergil doesn't relent and teleports too fast for Sephiroth to use any of his spells. The Son of Sparta switches back to his Mirage Edge and Yamato combination as he delivers quick combos and projectile slashes before teleporting behind the angel and delivers a well-placed precision slash that relieves him of his angel wing. Cinder grows back her grim arm and is now done playing around. As distance closes, and now with an enraged maiden, Vergil teleports up to Sephiroth as the two exchange blows. Cinder switches to her spear and heats up until it's glowing. As Son of Sparta and the angel enter blade lock, Sephiroth is impaled by the glowing spear. Seeing this, Vergil teleports back just in time before it explodes, blasting apart Sephiroth's upper body. Cinder clips her short sword, seeing that he has wasted more than enough of his time. Vergil activates his Devil Trigger Sin transformation. Cinder, despite amplifying her physical performance, Vergil is still moving too fast for it to react. While Dark Knight delivers a series of intense sword strikes, the two clash momentarily, but Vergil counters with another devastating combo, sending her stumbling back. Cinder tries to fly away, but Vergil takes flight and impels her before tossing her back down to the ground. The maiden stumbles to her feet as blood spills out of her wounds, having overexerted her aura. Vergil reverts back to his human self, who slowly approaches Cinder. Deciding that it's now or never, Cinder blasts Vergil with a full power fire blast. Despite his fast reaction, the Dark Knight took half the damage. Deciding to end the fight, Vergil teleports up to Cinder and impels her as her arms fall to her side. Vergil removes his blade and finishes her off with a well-placed judgment cut. And with that, I declare Vergil, the son of Sparta, is the winner. Okay, look, I'm not even gonna spend a second beating around the bush. We all know even if Vergil and Sephiroth were powered down, Cinder on her best day couldn't even dream of beating either combatant. And unless she plays it smart, which is highly unlikely, Cinder doesn't have the magic, the training, or the mindset to take these two down. The reason why Dante was able to face Vergil was due to the two fighting each other for years, and since the events of DMC 3, Dante had an insight to Vergil's fighting style and tricks. And the whole reason why Nero was able to defeat Vergil was due to him being worn down after his fight with Dante. And Sora, on the other hand, has a defensive magic to defeat Sephiroth. Now, to get out of the way, I can absolutely see why some would say that a more balanced fight would be if Vergil and Sephiroth were powered down too, with Vergil by the end of DMC 3, and Sephiroth by the end of Final Fantasy 7. To be blunt, it really wouldn't change anything since Cinder is in a terrible position to fight Vergil. The Yamato alone is a nightmare for any RWBY character, and due to the functions of her Grimarm, makes her even more ill-prepared to fight not one, but two combatants that outclass her in both magic and swordsmanship. What you have is one who spent years embracing his demonic powers, while the other spent years developing himself as a swordsman. Even if Cinder were to somehow team up with Sephiroth, Vergil is still in a much more better position to win, since neither of them can overpower him or even match him in this Devil Trigger Sin transformation. And don't even get me started on how pathetic Cinder is in terms of magic. Seriously, it's unfair. Leaving the fight between Vergil and Sephiroth. In that scenario, Vergil will still have plain demonic power to use for his doppelganger and his Sin transformation. And I absolutely see no reason why Vergil would even team up with either combatant. Sure, Cinder may be a small fry, but he's not stupid enough to team up with someone that will be a threat to him. And if he were to team up with Cinder, he would end up screwing her over like he did with Arkham, even if he sensed that she's trying to backstab him. And even if Sephiroth and Vergil were to get Cinder out of the way, I still see Vergil walking away as a winner, since Sephiroth's spells can easily be dodged by phasing through them, and his Heartless Angel will take too long to use. That will force Sephiroth to rely on his swordsmanship. But that's just my opinion. Is Vergil the superior son of Sparta, or does Cinder have some ability or technique that I may have overlooked? Or perhaps is it possible for the One-Winged Angel to pull off the upset? Let me know in the comments below, and before I go, I'd like to thank you all for sticking around, and I'll see you all in September for Season 2. With that said, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitter if you care about that, and I'll see you in Season 2.
We got it from here! Let's go!
Wait!
Hey! We got a job to finish.
There is no way they can take that thing!
We are not going back.
But they're gonna get killed!
Then that's their choice! It's a sacrifice they're willing to make, and we can't stop them.
Jake!
You know what? I'm not my father. And I'm gonna make damn sure that it stays that way. We're getting out of here. And we're gonna save the world.
You're right.
Alpha Team here. Respond.
This is Nighthawk.
I have secured G. I'm all that is left of Alpha Team. I'm en route to the rendezvous point.
Once again, only you survived, Mr. Death. Roger that. Don't be late.
Time's taking its toll on me. I'm turning to